Here.
Councilmember Yarbrough.
Here.
Vice Mayor Clarici.
Here.
Mayor No.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Number 3, ceremonial matters. We have none. Closed session report. We did not meet, so we do not have a closed session report. Number 5, adoption of the agenda.
I'll move to adopt.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Passes unanimously. 6, brief comments by the City Council. We will start with Councilmember Yarborough.
I have none.
Councilmember Saragosa.
I've had, the last couple weeks, I've had a few just meetings with residents on different issues throughout the city. And so I just want to say thank you for reaching out. And it's always good to hear different perspectives and hear stuff. So I just want to say thank you. So that's it.
Great. Councilmember Gottberg.
I have none.
Vice Mayor Clarici.
Nada.
And I have none as well. Okay, we will move on to consent calendar. Does anyone wish to pull an item? No? Okay, we'll open the consent calendar for public comment.
Good evening, City Council. I have one comment on item 7.5. The Major H&L Committee met before and approved this to be forwarded to you for your approval. The B Street is falling apart and we need to fix it quick before it completely falls apart.
Great, thank you. Is that microphone working? Because I was having problems hearing. Is it turned on?
Yeah,
Is it on?
one of our,
Oh, okay, somebody can hear.
one of the audience heard it.
Okay. Is there any more public comment? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council for a motion.
I'll move the consent.
I'll second.
I have roll call, please.
Councilmember Gottberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Saragosa.
Aye.
Councilmember Yarbrough.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Clarici.
Aye.
Mayor No.
Aye. Thank you. We'll move on to item 8, public comment. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the council on any matter not on the agenda that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. State law prohibits the council from acting on items not listed on the agenda except by special action of the City Council under specific circumstances. The mayor reserves the right to limit the speaker's time to 3 minutes. You are not allowed to make personal attacks on individuals or make comments which are slanderous or may invade an individual's personal privacy. Do we have any public comment this evening? Okay, seeing none, we will bring it back. Do we have any written communications?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay, seeing none, we'll move to item 9. Items pulled from the consent calendar, we have none, which brings us to number 10. 10.1, consideration of an ordinance extending the temporary memorandum of needle and syringe exchange programs in the city of Placerville for an additional 10 months and 15 days. Mr. Morris.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you recall, on February 27, 2024, the Council adopted an urgency ordinance creating a temporary moratorium on needle and syringe exchange programs within the city. And by law, that particular ordinance is only good for 45 days. And so we are bringing back this ordinance to you. You have the option to let it expire or to extend the ordinance for an additional 10 months and 15 days. And I want to note that it doesn't require you that it has to go that long. We could adopt a permanent ordinance prior to that or come back and take action to avoid it at that time so it didn't extend any further. But it can go up to a maximum of 10 months and 15 days, at which time you can extend it again for a 1-year period if you would like. Tonight, it's our recommendation that you approve this extension for the 10 months and 15 days to allow us additional time to study and determine actions and potential issues that we can to resolve our concerns with this. So nothing more than that tonight, but we are here to answer questions, myself or our city attorney who has assisted with this.
Great. Thank you. Are there any questions from the council? Seeing none, we will open this to public comment.
I support this extension. Sue Rodman, resident of Placerville. My feeling is that Marshall Hospital and the community services also offers the same thing with about a lot of better protections to avoid having these things becoming just trash in our parks and on our streets and along the El Dorado Trail. So I really think that we do need to extend this moratorium. And I would also be in favor of making it permanent.
Thank you, Sue. Anyone else? Seeing none, we will bring this back to the council for discussion and a motion.
So I don't support a moratorium. I didn't previously. My position on that hasn't changed. So just wanted to state that. I also don't think we're going to learn much about the operation of syringe exchange programs collecting data when they are not operating. So I think if we wanted to evaluate that, we need to allow them to operate while we were collecting data. That's all.
Thank you. Anybody else?
No, but I will make a motion to approve extension of the ordinance for the 10 months and 45 days. 15 days, sorry. That was 45 was, or yes, thank you. Thank you.
I'll second.
Okay, can I have roll call, please?
Councilmember Gottberg,
No.
Councilmember Zaragoza,
Aye.
Councilmember Yarbrough,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Clarici,
Aye.
Mayor No.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move to item 11, public hearings. We have none, which brings us to 12, our discussion and action items. 12.1, consider adoption of actions to alleviate issues that may be the result of additional establishments of tobacco retail stores. Mr. Rivas.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Just to give a little recap, the City Council adopted an urgency ordinance providing for an interim moratorium on new tobacco retail applications at your meeting on March 12th of 2024. This urgency ordinance is set to expire on April the 26th. Council will have the opportunity to review the ordinance again and consider extending this ordinance at its meeting on April. So state law requires that the council adopt actions to alleviate concerns by allowing the establishment of new tobacco retail establishments 10 days prior to considering an extension of the ordinance, which is the purpose of this item. If extended, the city would add 10 months, or it would allow the urgency ordinance to last for 10 months, 15 days, giving staff ample time to bring a tobacco retail ordinance to the council by the deadline of March 6th of 2025. Based on past and current experiences, the following actions are recommended to alleviate the effects of continued tobacco product sales and operations. One, we will continue follow-up on complaints regarding the sale of banned tobacco products. And the responsible departments of that would be code enforcement, and we would work in concert with the police department. We would continue to collaborate with the El Dorado County Public Health Division's countywide tobacco use prevention program team in tobacco prevention programs, and the responsible department would be Development Services. And three, we would conduct regular visits of existing tobacco retailers and provide education and/or enforcement of current city codes and state regulations. And again, that would be Development Services. Code enforcement is the responsible department for doing that. And then number four, any other measures that would be recommended by the City Council. So with that, staff is recommending that the council adopt these actions that are listed in the staff report. That concludes staff's report. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the council? Okay, Michael.
Thank you, Pierre. I was just wondering, was there any feedback from the smoke shops? I mean, did we get any stores offering any thoughts, yay, nay, or otherwise on any of this?
No, we have not received any comment from the tobacco retail industry.
Okay,
But we have not proactively, sought. We haven't gone to them,
sure.
specifically to seek their comments, but we haven't heard anything from anybody.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Gottberg.
Similarly, I guess, and this may be something that comes back and seems like it's covered here, but have we had a problem with sale of tobacco products to minors from our retail establishments? If you can answer that tonight, if that's a common occurrence or sort of what our circumstances are currently on that front.
We have, during sting operations, smoke shops within the city of Placerville have sold to minors, both under the age of 21 and under the age of 18.
Are there any other questions from the council? No? Okay, seeing none, we will open this to public comment.
Sue Rodman, Placerville resident. Again, I support this. This is becoming all too common. When you go by the high school and you see high school students with cigarettes in their hands, you know they're getting them somewhere.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, we will bring it back to council for discussion and a motion.
I'll move staff recommendation. Item 12.1.
I will second.
I do have not a comment, I guess I should have asked this earlier.
It's okay.
We're still, one of the things, I mean, we tied ourselves into pretzels with cannabis. I mean, and you go into one of the two cannabis, and it's like walking into Fort Knox. I mean, they scan you, they've got IDs, and literally these places, you know, from what I'm hearing, and it's all hearsay, although some of it's pretty good sources. They're actually selling THC products that are, and then there's no like regulation on this lower limit thing, And I'm assuming that while we're enforcing these things, we are plumbing the depths of being able to go in and I don't even know if there's a re-regulate these businesses at some point and really start to get on this because, like I said, you have to have a whole body scan to get cannabis up at one of these two places, and you can just roll into one of these shops, tell them you're 21, and they'll just start handing you stuff, and God knows what's going out the back door of these places. Some of them, not all of them, I'm sure, very legitimate businesses, but some of them, maybe not. Anyway, I just want to say, I hope we can sort of get into that. I'm not a regulation guy either. I believe in free enterprise, but some of this is kind of working counterproductive to the stuff we did for all that other, so.
Well, I think you're right. I think we don't know what's in the tobacco products. They're not being tested the way other products are. So there's definitely some good discussions to be had and concerns for our community.
I didn't ask a question.
Yeah, so if I may to respond, we are looking into that. It's our understanding, this has come to staff rather late, that there is a loophole that is allowing some of the tobacco retailers to sell a hemp product, which is classified as industrial hemp, and therefore it's not regulated by the state. But we're looking to see if this is a product that we can regulate locally, because there is an amount of THC. However, it's not tested. We have no idea to what amount. And of course, as Chief Wren pointed out, these products do at times end up in the hands of minors. And it's probably a good idea to do what we can to keep these products, especially containing THC, out of the hands of minors.
Thank you. Have any other comments? Okay, we had a first and a second. Can we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Gottberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Zaragoza.
Aye.
Councilmember Yarbrough.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Clarici.
Aye.
Mayor No.
Aye. All right. That brings us to 12.2. Consider adoption of the Public Art Master Plan prepared by Arts and Culture El Dorado for the city of Placerville. Now, I had do you want to make a suggestion, or is it okay? You're looking at me. I always feel paranoid when you start looking at me.
I answer to you, Mayor. So
Yeah. Yeah, all right. Well, I just wanted to read something from our strategic plan that we just adopted 2 years ago, and this is under Maintain, Improve Quality of Life, number 3. Strategy, encourage and provide space for public art. Work with the Arts and Culture El Dorado and other focus groups and organizations to develop a plan and process to incorporate the acquisition and installation of public art at parks and other public sites. This would include a detailed policy and protocol approved through both the Recreation and Parks Commission and City Council. And so what I kind of want to recommend this evening is that we treat this as a draft, as a public hearing. This is the first time anyone's heard it. And then we send that back to our Park and Rec Commission and our Planning Commission, and then bring it back to the City Council for approval. I just kind of wanted to throw that out for everyone to think about and consider. And do we have questions, comments from the City Council?
About that? No.
Okay. Okay, then we will open this to the public for public comment.
Do we do it to staff report?
Oh, yeah, staff report. All right, now you can have your turn, Mr. Morris. I know.
I don't have to, but
I'm feeling efficient tonight, you know?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So this item, and I agree with Mayor No, and I have had discussions with Terry Lamonchek, who is in our audience tonight, regarding this and delaying the actual adoption and give us a little bit more time to review and make sure we all have in this plan what we want. So this is not, that we don't want to do this at all. We think this is a good plan. It's in our strategic plan. We want to do it. We just want to give everybody the opportunity to thoroughly review. So we'll look at this more as a draft tonight that we are reviewing. I would encourage both the public and you as council, give us your comments, give us your concerns, both good and bad, so that we can start moving that forward. I wanted to let you know that Mr. Rivas has notified me that we did make the timeline okay, that we will have this on the Planning Commission agenda next week on the 16th of April. And then I haven't talked to Mr. Yule yet, but we will get it to his Recreation and Parks Commission as soon as possible, so that we can meet the deadlines. Goal would be hopefully to maybe get it back at our first meeting in May, just in case. We have to have it done prior to May 30th. So if we can bring it at our first meeting in May, then that gives us a little more time in case there's more change that we need to make. We can finalize those at our second meeting in May and have it done prior to that date. So all of this is kind of coming together. It should give us time to thoroughly review, make comments. But again, I emphasize, if you have comments on it that you can make tonight, if you go back and read and have other ideas that you would like to share with us, please send them to me. I can get them to Terry Lamonchek, and we can move forward with those as we go forward. So I think there are some very good things in this plan. As you see, most of them there are noticed as recommendations to move forward. And so it doesn't say that we are necessarily, these are the things we're going to do. Those are recommendations, kind of a list that we have to choose from. Staff did review and made some changes to this, but after review further and discussions with a couple of you, I realize that there may be some other areas where we want to address also. So with that, I will turn it back to the council for your comments, and let's say Terry Lamonchek is here to answer questions, and also her consultant, maybe, on the phone? We haven't been able to reach her. She was going to be available by phone, but I'm sure that Terry can answer most of our questions. So,
Great.
So I'll turn it back to you, Mayor.
Thank you. Now, do we have any questions from the council? Councilmember Gottberg?
So I guess one question is, how does our Community Pride Committee currently work on membership? Because I know, since I've been on the council, we have not taken applications or appointed anyone to that committee.
I think Mr. Yule can speak to that.
Yeah, either Steve or I. The Community Pride was made as a informal committee, I think is how we termed it. Correct, Steve?
That's
Go ahead.
correct. Yeah.
So we don't officially appoint members anymore. They kind of recruit their own. If this were to happen, the assumption would be that it would become more formal. So that's something to consider. It talks about additional members, and et cetera. Perhaps some more discussion with the current members of Community Pride should take place as part of that also. So,
Great. Other questions?
No, I was just going to say, I'm interested to hear maybe like a synopsis from Terry, kind of on her thoughts on the whole overview of it, and may elicit more questions at that point. But I'd like to hear just a synopsis of the whole thing.
Okay. Terry, would you like to come up and?
Well, shockingly, we are at item 12.2, and it's 5:20, so, I mean, is this Placerville City Council? I say that because Barbara Goldstein, our consultant, was planning to make herself available following along the agenda, but she's not on the phone with us. But I'm happy to give you a synopsis and field any questions. And Kathy Lishman is here too, representing Community Pride, of course, as you guys know. So I think many of you participated in the public process that gathered ideas and thoughts and really provided an opportunity for the community to think about and process how we think about our town. And those of you who were there remember the massive Post-it, questions that they had up. And all of that information was synthesized into this report. And I really should start off by saying, I spoke with Barbara earlier today, and she really emphasized that this whole document is aspirational. It's not Arts and Culture's plan, it's not the consultant's plan, it's City Council's plan, or maybe even more accurately, it's the cities of Placerville's plan. So I can mention the three sort of guiding principles, the overarching themes that really emerged through the public process. And they were: tell all the stories, respect the past, honor the present, and embrace the future, and celebrate the natural environment. And, that really is how we all think of the town, I'm sure. The plan makes recommendations or suggestions about structure, possible revenue streams, how to process decisions that come up about public art, how artists can propose their own public art, where it could go, and that includes performance as well as stationary or visual art. It also suggests a process on page, it has to do with Community Pride and how that committee would be sort of formalized. It's in here. But Arts and Culture El Dorado will provide staff support to this whole process, both to the city and to the Community Pride Community Pride Committee. And we have an experienced and very talented curator on our staff who would be the staff person to sit in with Community Pride. And ultimately, this really becomes a tool for you, the City Council, in making decisions about public art. We didn't have policies and guidelines to follow when decisions would come to you previously. And this is a way to move through these kinds of decisions step by step, following the guidelines. It's a roadmap for how to integrate public art into our civic landscape and create a dialogue and talk about, as we say, all the stories that make up our heritage.
Great, thank you. Do we have any other questions from council? Mike?
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the overview. I have a question, and I'll just get to the heart of it, I guess, in one way. I mean, outside of establishing like a fee or some kind of fee schedule when it comes to whether it's public or private, new builds, have you thought through any other? I mean, is there any other sort of ways? I get grants. I mean, that's a given, right? We'll try to look for grants to do public art. But is there any other cities or districts or anything else that have come up with innovative ways to try to make it sort of cost neutral to do to applicants? Because I'm just trying. I mean, for me, the concern is this is strange economy right now. I'd hate to think of adding an additional cost on top of something because we want to make aesthetically pleasing, but at the same time, it's new cost, right? So just wondering if you had any ideas or if you've seen it in other municipalities, things like that.
Well, you sort of glossed over the grant question. And you know me, I love raising money. And so I could foresee a partnership with Arts and Culture in the city to look at grants, apply for them, working with Community Pride. There are lots of institutional funders who are interested in things beyond, public art per se. For example, Cal Humanities, where you can tell stories about the stories. And there are funding streams that may be possible through that mechanism. USDA, Caltrans, the Department of Forestry, Forest Service. Lots of these government entities have ways in which public art can interpret their own missions. So that's certainly one place. I like going to grant-making entities. I like going to people whose job it is to give money away, and so we say, well, we can help you do your job. That's one thing. As far as other municipalities, there are many creative and really inspired public art programs across the country. We did not engage Barbara and her firm, Art Builds Community, to do that deep dive. That is a deep dive that we can do at the wishes of the council. Understood.
Thank you. And it may be something that's down the road, but I do think it might be worth a look just to see, because I do think, at least for myself, I would have probably a concern with adding a cost to a project. But if there was ways to do it that are cost neutral, I'd love to be able to see that. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
It's up to you. I know sometimes it's kind of a cold water bath to think about increasing, whether it's TOT or any other, building costs or development fees. It is done everywhere. And so, it's just a mindset, whether you wish to do it or not.
Understand. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have other questions? Okay, thank you. All right, seeing none, we will, I have a lot of comments on the plan, but I was going to open that up to public comment first to go ahead and kind of give us your thoughts about the plan, input. We're here to listen. Come on up. Oh, okay. I will. Some of you came in late, so I just will reiterate that we're just treating this as a draft. We're taking public comment tonight. It's going to go back to the Rec and Park Commission. It's going to go to the Planning Commission, and then it will come back to the Council for adoption. So for those of you who walked in late, just understand we're just taking comments on the plan to absorb, so that the commissions can look at it and we can all kind of help shape this as we go forward.
Good evening, Mayor No and members of the council. Kathy Lishman. I guess I need to speak about the community pride part. I'm very supportive of the city having a public art plan. And I said this quote before, and I think it's so true, from Pablo Picasso. Art washes away from the soul the dust of everyday life. And I think it speaks to people in different ways, and I think it helps bring about a sense of community. I thought the process for this project was excellent. It was very public-oriented. It was a very public process, and there was lots of involvement by people and lots of enthusiasm and lots of ideas that were all up there on those sticky notes. And I have to say that I had nothing to do with Community Pride getting into this plan, except that I shared with Barbara the Community Pride resolution and pointed her around to different places in town that we've been involved in. Our city is so full of art and of artists, and having a public plan and creating more public art will really enhance the community. Community Pride is a long-standing volunteer organization with over 30 years of experience in working in public spaces, so we're already there. And Community Pride members are very quiet behind the scenes. Nobody wants recognition. Everybody's just happy to be to the part that they're able to contribute to the city. We've been responsible for creating and maintaining gardens along Main Street and Broadway, at the creek, at the trail, Goldbug Park. We've made streetscape enhancements, a monument installation, and have created or commissioned public art ourselves. The latest resolution for Community Pride was adopted by the City Council in January 8th, 2019, and it lists the roles and responsibilities of Community Pride volunteers. In the resolution, it says, under the organization, under the direction of the Director of Community Services or his/her appointee, volunteers will assist staff with the following. A, creation of new landscape and art projects throughout the city. B, maintenance of existing landscape and public art. And then E, promotion of existing gardens and public art. So Community Pride, even in the resolution, it talks about that. And I think I've told you, we commissioned the Snowshoe Thompson mural on Sacramento Street. Deb Power did the mural between, I say, Tortilla Flats and Cosmic Cafe, even though those aren't the names because people know where I mean. And she got a grant from the Cannabis Committee to maintain that mural, to update it. She also did some murals at Old City Hall parking lot, some fairy murals hidden around in different places. So it makes sense to include us in the screening, review, and recommendation processes for public art, as we would be a valuable resource and asset for the city. Since public art appeals to both locals and visitors, I would love to see a percentage of the current, to start with a percentage of the current TOT tax to be set aside for public art, as it would be a benefit to economic development. And beautification is a key aspect of community development, and it would help enhance the sense of community. So I've given this quote before, but I will end with it. It's from Hal Conklin, who was a former city council member in Santa Barbara. The American city is in search of a new vision. We must restore to our communities a structure that is vital, one that not only cares about its neglected bridges and roads, but one that also cares about its infrastructure of the spirit. And I know that there's always economic difficult times, but I also know that the infrastructure of the spirit of a community is extremely valuable. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Ask a question?
Yes.
Kathy, could I ask you a question? How many members do you currently have on Community Pride? And if we changed it from sort of the all volunteer to an appointed committee, would we be essentially eliminating some of the current members by doing so?
So I don't believe so, because I think Community Pride should have two parts, the landscape and the art. Probably right now, I don't know how many, maybe we have 7 volunteers that are regular that have a space that's their own, and we have 1 volunteer who's trying to create a new revitalized garden on Schnell Road and Broadway. And so we in this last year, we've picked up a couple more volunteers, and so I could see it as two parts. A landscaping part and an art part that is made up of, I know the plan suggests some different people who could be part of the committee. So I think that it's really a work in progress. I think there's a lot that could be worked out. I think nobody's really talked about different ideas yet, so I think that's a possibility. Any other questions? Nobody ever asks me questions when I say anything.
Thank you, Kathy.
Hi, Ruth Michelson. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. And I wanted to really start by thanking Terry Lamonchuk for getting the grant from the Endowments of the Arts. And I wanted to thank the city for pitching in $10,000 for this really great study that's been done. I think it was, as Kathy said, it was very well implemented, and I attended the workshops, and I was also one of the people who was interviewed in that list of interviewees. I believe because I own an art gallery, and I'm a great supporter of the arts in all forms. So I did have some comments about the report, and I'll try to keep it brief. And so ABC is not here, but they'll hear these comments since this is their report, correct? Somehow they'll be conveyed. All right. I just really loved their introduction. I thought it was really reflective of our workshops. I think they really heard us and really combined all those many, many comments we had on Post-it stickers and brought it into a cohesive report. On page 4 of the report, I don't know if you have it, but it does, I am concerned. You know, we worked so hard. Page 4 talks about the Hangman's Noose, a prominent feature on historic Main Street and much of retail marketing. The noose is a reminder of historic event. You know, we worked so hard to get this off of city letterhead. You know, I know this report is saying that they want to reflect all history, but this is so prominent in this report. I find that a little disturbing. So that's my input there. That we have to talk about the noose, which the city has gotten off of their business cards and stationery, like I said, and their city parks and everything else. I appreciate on page 5 that they mention Third Saturday Art Walk. Myself and Elena Tucker, who owns the gallery next to me, we are the organizers for Third Saturday Art Walk, so thanks for the shout out. Appreciate that. Then hurriedly going on to page 7, down towards the bottom, B, where it says create a public art map. I think that's really excellent. Love to see that. I also like above that A, promoting partnerships between galleries, restaurants, businesses, et cetera. You can read that. I thought that was a strong point. And hey, F, support performance art, including the Wagon Train. Yay, I'm very active in the Wagon Train. Love to see that. Thank you for doing that. I know that's coming up on our next agenda in two weeks. We're going to be talking about Wagon Train. Okay, almost out of time. So the audio tour, the map-based audio tour at the bottom of page 7, I thought was wonderful. A couple of things I didn't quite understand on the next page, page 8. What is environmental art, I'm asking, and what is Commission Environmental Art and Earthworks? If they could just explain further. Do I need to stop?
Ruth, I'm going to give you extra time. We have a small audience, and I think we really want the input on these
Okay, thank you.
things tonight.
4 on that same page, on page 8, continue to explore future use of the county courthouse as a performance space. I know that's one of many options that have been talked about, but are we ready to put that, to say that is what we're doing with the courthouse? It seems a little premature. On 5B, the continuous mural, good idea, but I was trying to visualize that because we've got the parking structure and I wasn't really quite sure how that would be. Anyway, just needs a little more clarification. I loved D, let me tell you. As a merchant, our empty shops are not a good look at all. Brown paper or soaped over or whatever. I would love property owners to commission art installations in empty storefronts. I don't know how you could, I mean, it costs money, or I don't know how that could be done, but I think that's a brilliant idea. 5D. 5G, busking spots. You know, I've got musicians sometimes playing outside my shop, and sometimes they really aren't very good musicians. And yeah, really want them to move along. So, I don't know, maybe there's a way that they could be vetted in some way. But I like the idea, but not just anyone who shows up. Encourage performance, this is H. Encourage performances at the bell tower. Well, we just went through this huge dealio where $500 or whatever, so I'm not sure how that matches up, although I do like the idea. Okay, page 9. I like F, school districts, getting them involved. That was, 6F, yes. G, I thought the videos is a great idea. Just again, it would, anything that helps with marketing for Placerville is always welcomed. And then going down to 8, A, B, and C, community engagement, public informed, all good things. Keep it going. We had so many people who showed up at the workshop. And then to finish up, well, your funding sources, I thought those were good ideas too. It was a different idea than the TOT funding, but it was development. You know, your finance person could probably better speak to that, but I like that idea. And the last thing, Michael, Mr. Saragosa, you had mentioned going now onto page 15. Well, somewhere it says in here that these have to pay for themselves. I guess actually, page 17 at the top, the Public Art Fund must have funds available to cover all costs associated with the purchase, transportation, installation, ongoing maintenance, and insurance of the art. So that seems to be built in, that it's self-funded. And sorry, but going backwards to 15, I kind of had the same question about appointment of the committee. I like what Kathy said. It wouldn't displace any of those she has already, but I think that's really a good model to get a wide representation to be on the committee. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth.
Sue Rodman, and I participated in the public meetings and put my stickers on the wall too. And I think this looks really good for a draft. I really like having community pride put in here and also having the wagon train called out. Those are two things that I think are outstanding in this city. Can you hear me okay?
Barely.
Okay. Okay, get closer to the mic. The only problem I had with it was when they described the noose as being something central to Placerville, and we worked so hard to get rid of that. It was a small event. It's happened throughout the West. Pick a town. You'll probably find that they hung somebody sometime. So I know they did in Butte, Montana. I know they did in Twin Falls, Idaho. I know they did in Buell, Idaho. I know they did in other places in California. Pick a place. We don't need to have that as being a major definition. You can say that it was called Old Hangtown because once upon a time they hung a couple people. Okay, that's about all that needs to be said about that, but having the noose as being central is not really true anymore. Let's get rid of that. But all in all, it's a good plan, and I would support going forward with it.
Great. Thank you, Sue. Any other public comments? Going once? Going twice? Okay, we'll bring this back to council. Does anyone want to start with other comments? No? Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I agree. The noose is, yeah, I missed it. Yeah, we went through a lot on the noose, and yeah, I've never had a problem with Hangtown. The noose, yeah, I think it should go. That's just my own personal feeling. Okay, this is fine. I like it. Obviously, the money part will be the money part, and we'll have to noodle around with that before we make any decisions about potentially how we fund this thing. And maybe Terry can answer this. It's like a lot of things in this town. It's kind of like there's Main Street, and then when you go past Main Street, it's like dragons and serpents are outside of Main Street. and the rest of the town doesn't kind of exist. Now, there is mentions of Broadway and Placerville Drive in the plan, but man, when you read this, it feels like it's the 2 blocks from Cedar Ravine down to Sacramento Street, which is fine. We could focus a lot of art. I'm kind of curious, was there outreach done to those areas? I noticed that on the Broadway side, there was that Broadway art thing, which I recall. How about down Placerville Drive? And if nobody responds, that's fine. I mean, they're busy making money down there, so I don't want to bother them.
We can bother them.
Well, no. If it stops them from making money, I don't want you to bother them. Because that's what they're busy doing down there. But I'm just curious about that part of the outreach.
First of all, I want to acknowledge the comments about the language about the news. I hear you, I read you loud and clear, and, this is a draft. Yeah. I think, having outside eyes come in, that's why you have consultants.
Yeah.
And, but that doesn't mean it, speaks from us. It might speak about us, but we want this plan to be from us. The consultants did tour around neighborhoods, and somewhere in here, I don't want to take the time flipping, is a reference to neighborhood walking tours. We talked about B Street earlier tonight, but the B Street neighborhood comes to mind, and so that is built in, is one of the recommendations. And yes, she does talk about Placerville Drive and Broadway. Also, the parks are not on Main Street. And she talks about every park, they visited every park. And so public art elements in parks can certainly be part of what we think about. Councilmember Clerici, you have something else on your mind, I can tell.
The only reason I asked the question, too, is because I looked through all the folks you talked to. I looked at the folks that were interviewed, and there was a fairly broad range of things, but, this is, it's kind of the folks you hear from the most when we talk about these things, and that's fine, because they're engaged a lot, and so that's okay. But once again, it seems like it's really Main Street, kind of downtown-centric.
I'll do an analysis of who was.
Well, no, okay.
Get back to you. But remember,
Yeah.
there were 2 big public meetings and the community, the farmers market pop-up. So, we really gave people a chance to,
Okay.
put their views in. And
All right. No, that's fine.
have
I was
their
just
voices be
curious.
heard.
That's all. It's good.
Right, I'm going to get back to you on that. We did look for, people who would be participatory during those stakeholder interviews, but also who live in the neighborhoods. I don't want to name names, but I can think of a few people who are community leaders, not in the arts, but they live locally. Any other questions?
No, it's a good point, John, because I think, and even to the point of who can afford potentially to build public art, it may very well end up being in Broadway or or a Placerville Drive as we look at where, because this is limited here about what you could do in this area. So it's a good point to make, because I can envision those areas maybe having something prior to something downtown.
Well, and it's okay. Let's go crazy here. Folks have always wanted, like it's even mentioned in here, and we've heard it before, a performance venue, an outdoor performance venue somewhere, and it's almost always between Cedar Ravine and Sacramento Street. Well, there ain't a whole lot of space between Cedar Ravine and Sacramento Street that isn't either occupied or used for parking, and we all know about parking. So when you start looking at those spaces, you go, well, how do I put something in those spaces? Well, if you're up on Broadway, less so, but down on Placerville Drive, there are spaces. There's open spots. You could conceivably do that. But then you wonder, is that what people are thinking when they make those comments? My guess is the answer to that question is no, that's not what they're thinking. They're thinking the cute part of town where everybody likes to go and hang out and, have a meal.
There's also the creek. Terry Zeller took a lot of time with the team to talk about what's possible back along the creek.
Which part of the creek?
Behind, well, right back there.
Like Clay Street.
Well, yeah, back there happens to be between Cedar Ravine and Sacramento Street. So once again, I mean, it's just this thing, and I get it. I love this town. I've lived here longer than most people, and I love it. But it's real centric.
You know, part of the reason you get to say that is because you're older than most of us.
Oh,
I just want to point that out.
I'm let's see.
Well,
I'm probably older than most of the people in this room.
put together.
Yeah.
Let me say, though, this kind of planning process, you might end up, you have to use a filter, and you might end up with 15 recommendations. And if 3 of the really good ones are implemented, then I think we're ahead of the game. It's aspirational. I love the diversity of ideas that came up, and certainly there were some folks from our performing arts community, and they would love to have a space, for public events. So we will know, I think, the ones that we can implement and that are the best ideas will rise to the top, I'm sure.
Thank you. Councilmember Grappberg, you look like you were going to.
Oh, sure, I can make some comments. I guess I'll start with, I agree, we probably shouldn't have language on the noose in this. I'd like to see that removed as well. For funding, I do have concerns about raising our TOT tax above, and this is probably a further discussion, but above the county. I think we always talk about when we do something different than the county, what does that mean for us? And how does that impact things? So I think, they're at 10%. Perhaps looking at how our current 10% is allocated, and if we could put some percentage towards public art would be a better idea than looking at trying to increase that rate to be higher than the county. And similarly, I have concerns about, new development and whether or not it would impact new development. The market is quite tight on development, and I don't think we want to do anything that would restrict the ability to develop in our community. I mean, we just talked about this with our development impact fees, right? So sort of concerns on those fronts. I had some more detailed comments. I guess I do want, maybe this is something for, our 2 committees to look at, sort of the whole idea of sending this to Community Pride. Maybe it does sort of make its own, maybe it's a public art committee that's associated with Community Pride, because I don't want to take away from the existing sort of all volunteer Community Pride Committee and what they're doing by having it turn into a more like commission, a committee appointed group. So that's sort of one of the concerns or thoughts I had. I don't want to, it might be the same people, like they might serve on both, but not wanting to impact some of the other things like the landscaping and other stuff that our Community Pride folks are doing. There was a sentence that was just confusing to me, and I think it was how it was written, but it says,
What page are you on?
on page 14, D, number I, the city of Placerville has engaged Arts and Cultural El Dorado to staff the Community Pride Committee. I certainly don't think we are asking them to staff the Community Pride Committee, so if staff should be support or something like that. But that was just the language there, I think, was not what was intended. Yeah.
I'm so sorry to interrupt.
Yep.
I just had some messages from Barbara, our consultant, who didn't realize we would get to the item this quickly, and I was trying to see if she could join. Would you mind repeating what you said about what you just said?
Oh, yeah, so item on page 14 under D, procedures number I, currently it says the city of Placerville has engaged Arts and Cultural El Dorado to staff the Community Pride Committee. Obviously, the city of Placerville and the city council would staff the Community Pride Committee. So I think what was maybe intended there was the city of Placerville has engaged Arts and Culture to support the Community Pride Committee, not to staff it. So that's just a minor comment, but it has big implications for what we mean. And I don't think the intent was to say that you guys were gonna like pick the staff of the Community Pride Committee, because that's contrary to like everything else after it in the section.
Is it acceptable for me to respond to that?
Yeah, sure. I'm okay with that.
In discussions with Cleve, we talked about city staff bandwidth. That was, part of the rationale behind the use of the word staff the committee. In other words, we would, if this is the way you guys want to handle it, convene the meetings, take the minutes, do the infrastructure part, and be the staff support to Community Pride. And Cleve, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I think you're both in agreement. It's
Yeah.
just the way it's worded, not to say that you would be staff to them, but you would be staff support to the
Oh, I see.
committee. So it's
You
just,
wouldn't
it's just a
comprise
wording
the
thing. It's not,
committee.
it can be read the wrong way. So I think it's just a
Okay.
clarification in that we can work on.
Okay,
Yep.
good. Thank you.
Right.
Yep.
So, do you wish to bring the consultant into the meeting? She's now available.
I think I have my comments left, and we're kind of done, so, I mean, I think you can take the comments back to the consultant and work through that, and she can watch the video is there for everyone to see also, so,
All right.
yeah. Since we're just doing comments on the draft, I don't think it's,
And she could join for the next round.
Correct.
yes.
Yep.
When you do adopt it.
Because I can't think of anything that I would ask that you couldn't answer right now anyway, so.
You and the public can certainly contact me or Cleve, whoever is the most appropriate person to receive outside comments, edits, typos,
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
Understood. But we appreciate the.
Yeah, thank
the
you.
offer. Thank you.
Councilmember Gottberg, were you finished?
Yeah, I think the only other one, which I think one of our public kind of comment on and well, was some concerns related to encouraging performances at the bell tower. I'm
I'm going to hit that.
Yeah. So I kind of felt like that should be removed, that we shouldn't have that as a objective of encouraging performance at the bell tower. So I think those are, I'll let other folks talk.
Okay. Oh, did you have something, Vice Mayor?
No.
Okay, I'll move through my list, and then, if you think of something else, you can bring it up. Okay, so on page 6, under what people love about Placerville, I felt like there was one thing missing there, and that's our active community, and I kind of feel at fault for not pushing that more, but, active people really don't like to attend meetings. But they've embraced it. When Amgen came through town, they were very excited. When the Arts Council had their rock climbing exhibition, people were just super excited. It was like a reunion, and it is things that people in the community really embrace, is the active lifestyle. And so I felt like that should be reflected in what we love about Placerville and be able to incorporate into some of our art pieces. Yeah, well, and kind of to add that, we did not include any park and rec commissioners in any of our committees as I look through this either. So it's going to go to the Park and Rec Commission, so I'm not worried about it, but I'm just saying, oh, Tony, I didn't see that specified in there.
He was in the list.
Okay, I thought that, I didn't see as you representing as Rec and Park, I'm sorry. Okay. Anyways, that's here and there. It's going to go back to the Park and Rec Commission, and they'll have an opportunity to weigh in. And the next page, on number 7, number 1, number D, advocate for creation of a public stage. I just wanted to point out that there's the Borelli Amphitheater over at the high school, and we could look at cooperative use at the fairgrounds. There are areas around town that don't seem to be utilized that could perhaps be utilized. So going to page 8, down to 5, G and F. Yes, I'm a little concerned about the busking musicians also. Some people love them, some people don't. Perhaps, with some really regulated definitions there, but I'm not super excited about that based on past experience. On H, though, Encourage performances at the bell tower. I want to bring everyone back to our strategic plan that we recently adopted, Strategy 2. Develop a venue for public event space. A, initiate a plan to locate and develop a new public space for special events and other public assembly that offers an alternative to Main Street based on both current use and possible new uses for expanding recreation and cultural activities. So I just want to point out that that H is kind of in opposition to our strategic plan in terms of putting more things on Main Street. All right, what else do I have here? 7A, it says commission interpretive art as an element of Placerville Creek Trail improvements, and I don't know where the Placerville Creek is or the trail along the Placerville Creek. I'm wondering if you're referring to the El Dorado Trail along the Hangtown Creek. We should specify that better if that's what we actually mean.
It's the only place where that happens in this town. My guess is that.
I'm assuming, but I don't like to assume. So if it's something else, we need to talk about what it is. But I think that A would be interpretive art along the El Dorado Trail. And I don't think it has to be just along the creek. I mean, the El Dorado Trail is, Forney to Ray Lawyer, it's Mosquito up to Jakeway. There's a lot of real estate there that can be looked at and has potential. Let's see. Oh, so when we get to 8 and we're talking about the expanded role of community pride and the composition and those sorts of things, and I become concerned there with our staff time, because when I first read that, I looked at that and I thought, wow, that looks like a lot of staff time that we are not allocating to that at this point. And do we actually have that staff time, and how can we maybe accomplish that through volunteer groups, maybe one on the arts and culture, have a committee volunteered, not staffed, that would bring things to the community pride. But I don't see that we have the staff time to have like a monthly community pride Brown Act type committee that's doing that. I'm just very concerned that we actually have the staff time to do what we say we want to do. But maybe exploring other ways, as Community Pride has operated for many years, mostly on themselves, having discussions among themselves and whatever. And anyways, I don't know exactly what that looks like, but I think we might need to relook at what that looks like and what staff support for that looks like.
I just had a thought occur to me, so I'm
Yeah,
going to throw
bring it
this
on.
out. Could we potentially have like Arts and Culture and Community Pride send things to the Park and Rec Commission or committee and have them be the review body before it comes to us?
Yeah,
Make that part of their responsibilities?
that's potential, yeah. I mean, we can talk about that. Like I said, I was a little uncomfortable with how it's just reads in here because, but yeah, that would make sense because you already have a Park and Rec Commission that reviews everything that comes in that realm. Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Yeah, I think we need to be a little careful. We don't want to do too much planning in our plan, But I mean, the points are well taken and they're important. I've done a number of volunteer things in this town that actually built stuff, and I worked with Parks and Rec actually in the olden days, and we found the best way to do that was to inform them what we were doing, tell them what we were going to do, and then not go do it. Eventually, we went and did it, but we basically would bring them whole cloth. So when we swapped out the lights at Rotary, we got all the engineering documents, we got all the electrical documents, we got a volunteer electrician, a licensed person. They wrote it all up, and we took it to Ron, and we said, "Here, this is what we're doing, Ron." And they made sure we weren't going to blow anything up. But that's how these things work. And we did a very similar, much larger project at the high school where we did that. And that's where the heavy lifting, and people that have done volunteer work know this, that's where the heavy lifting is. It's coming to the group. These things sometimes fail because people have great ideas and they get a little bit into it and then they go, well, here you go, and they hand a bunch of people that are way too busy. And then it never goes anywhere, and then we blame them for why it doesn't get done.
No, that's true. I mean, we've had the same experience on the trail.
Yeah.
When you write, you do all the research, you do all the documents, you do the public outreach, you bring everything to the Park and Rec and not expect them to develop what you want. I sat on Park and Rec for 10 years. there were a number of times that people show up with great ideas that they just expected you to fully develop.
I'm sorry.
go
Case in
ahead.
point was the skateboard park. That thing floated around, and they'd come to the Park and Rec and say, well, isn't this a great idea? And we'd all go, well, yeah, it's a great idea. It did not until Joe Stansel and some of those people got a hold of it, and then some engineers and builders, they got a hold of that and said, we're going to make this happen. And they literally brought a project whole cloth. And then you get to nibble around the edges. You can say, oh yeah, well, in order to make that work for us, these are our rules and regs and blah, blah, blah. But it comes at you like 90-something% done. And then you can get a project going. But that's tough for a volunteer group. I know, I've done it, but you got to have a lot of really committed people for that sort of thing. Anyway, but that's something we can talk about almost as a guideline than a actual, besides the fact that we're not going to blow up the staff time.
Yeah.
Which could be on there.
Okay, so the next page, number 10, number 9, B, talks about increasing the city transient occupant tax to support public art. I would recommend that reading just how I said that and take out the from 10 to 12%. Leave that loose so we can talk about that in the future. I agree with Nicole. We do need to talk about TOT tax in a little bit more specific. And the problem also is when we say, hey, we want to dedicate existing TOT to that, realize we're taking away from something, and what are we taking away from, and how do we replace it? So we're not flush with all sorts of funds to do things. So we're going to have to really dig in and look at those things. See here, now I see you. Tony Windle, owner, TJ Bonkers, musician.
And musician.
Okay. All right, let's see, what else did I have here? Just more kind of about how that committee looks like, just really encouraging it to be more volunteer orientated. That's the truth. Things get done by the volunteers who want them to get done. I had a question on 17 when it talks about the Public Art Fund, and I was wondering who's going to hold this? Is the city going to hold this? Is the nonprofit going to hold that? You don't have to answer that now. Just, those details that we'll want to know as we move forward. Do we have any other questions, comments?
Just a couple. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Some of them are just a repeat, but just want to underline them. And definitely the bell tower. We've had enough stuff about the bell tower, so I think I want to underline that one more time. In terms of, and I think it's great, and I want to thank Arts and Culture El Dorado for sort of the staff assist with this as well going forward. That's the path we go down. The only question I had with that, and I was looking through it, is do we run into any, if are these, depending on how it's set up, do we have any Brown Act requirements? And if that's so, does that then necessitate having an actual city staff person doing something? So that was one thing I wanted to ask. I'm sure our city attorney may have a thought on that, but it can also wait if we need to look into it. So.
Well, the way I was thinking about it was, arts and culture definitely has a thing that they want to do, but I was thinking that the plan allows for any art groups to bring projects forward, and that's why looking at who's going to review them, if we put it on the Park and Rec level, it allows other groups to bring forth projects and to look at our plan to say, hey, how does this fit into our plan that we've all agreed upon and that we want to move forward with?
The only other one's it's more of a typo thing, I think, than anything. But on page 6, under the vision of Placerville in 10 years, we have family friendly twice because it says welcoming place, family friendly, more diverse, variety of art experience, and then family friendly again. So we probably only, I definitely want to be family friendly, but we
want to really drive home.
we probably only need to say it once. And then what else? I really like the idea of working with the high schools and trying to develop that out a little bit more. I think there's a lot of opportunities there, and I think it just gets the youth a little bit more involved in all this as well. So I don't know what that will look like because I think it is sort of a blank canvas, and so But I like the idea of just how that might look, and it gives us a better chance to maybe work with school districts as well. It's something we don't do a lot of, so I like that that aspect of it as well in the plan. That's it for now.
I'm just going to add one more thing because I realized I had it in my comments. But we talk a lot in sort of the background and introduction about supporting local local artists, but then we didn't really talk about it in the procedures section. So I would like to see some sort of like criteria that if it's going to Parks and Rec or whoever that decision-making body is, of like, is the artist local is one of the criteria that they are considering. Just because we say that's a value kind of upfront throughout it. Not that it's the only decision-making factor by any means, but that it's like something that will be considered.
Oh, the other thing that I heard or I didn't understand is, like, my understanding right now is if you have private property, you can put up a mural and that doesn't really need to come before the city for review. But once we pass this plan, will that still exist, or will those private properties be expected to come through the city and the review process? It's just, does somebody know?
Pierre, can you answer that? Sorry.
It's okay to say.
Oh, currently, there is no review for a mural that's on private property, say a building face.
Right.
We don't consider it a sign, and so it doesn't go through any kind of site plan review. But that was something that was talked about during the creation of this plan. So I think it's eventually up to the council whether that's something you feel should be subject to part of this review process and to come out of the plan.
Okay, no, I wasn't necessarily advocating that it should. I just wanted to understand, was this, making another layer that people weren't aware of? Vice Mayor said he had a question.
This really has nothing to do with this plan, but now you have piqued my interest. So some random building on Main Street decided, they had a really bad day, and they decided to paint the front of their building, and it wasn't a sign. It was a mural. They could do that, and there's really nothing.
That is correct.
Wow, that is weird. Thank you.
Thank you.
And did you want a response to the Brown Act question?
Sure, if you want to give one.
Sure. I was actually thinking about that. And I think that you have several options. So if it's the council or one of your commissions that is creating the membership of the landscape or the art subcommittee or commission, it would be a Brown Act body. But if you don't want it to be a Brown Act body, then it would be staff that creates the membership. So it would be taking applications and seeing, you want 4 people to this group, 4 people to that. So there's some level of formality. There's an application process, there's due dates, there's submittals, but now it's not subject to the Brown Act. So you could do it either way, and you could provide direction, but under one approach, it is a Brown Act body, and under the second approach, it's not.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that clarification. Terry, I want to thank you for bringing this forward. This is exciting. I know sometimes it's hard to have everybody picking it apart, but we're really excited about it. We're glad it's coming forward. We're excited it's moving forward, and want to thank you for all your effort in this. Thank you. Okay. So we'll do that as just a file and receive, and we will move on to item 12.3. Thank you. Consider support for Senate Bill 1432, amending the current program for seismic safety building standards for hospitals. Mr. Morris.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on this. I think most of you attended the hospital tour that they did.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anyone? Oh, you did not? I'm sorry. But anyway, there's some pretty strict requirements that they have coming up and really put them in danger of potentially even having to close if they could not meet these requirements. And it's related to seismic retrofit of their facilities. They have plans to do some things, but they don't have enough money to do what, as you heard, what would be required. This bill, as proposed, would extend that 8 years, that requirement for when that is due, and also look at some other things such as additional funding to help them potentially with it that the state should explore. So we, as I think I can say for all of us, we value our little hospital that we have in town. It's a great asset that we have, and we should continue to support. So this is simply a letter supporting SB 1432, which would, like I say, extend those requirements that are currently 2030 would extend to 2038. So there's quite a bit of information in here about it. I'm happy to answer any questions if I can. I'm not the total expert on the legislation, but everything I've looked at and reviewed on it seems to be very good, and we should support it. So,
Yeah, and I'll add a little bit more color. I mean, I think the idea behind this bill really is buy more time. You know, this has happened a couple of times already with an extension on the timeline, because there's really no good answer. I mean, there's obviously no funding right now, and even in good years, it's such a incredibly huge amount of money for every single hospital that we have in the state of California that we keep kind of pushing this out. And there's no it's a one-size-fits-all thing as well. So even in our area where we have less we do have earthquakes, but less seismic activity. There's no well, you can build it to this, but in LA you have to build it to that. So there's some of that still going around as well. But does this buy some time in case, I don't know, manna from heaven, and we get a bunch of money that could potentially go and fix these things? But I think it's probably the best option for now until someone comes up with a great idea that has been kicking around for over 20 years. But at least it gives us a little bit more time to do these things, and it is a consider. So for the public, I mean, you're talking, I think it was $60-70 million that's going to be needed for our small little hospital here on the Western Slope to do these things, and it's almost an impossibility. And we do run the risk of losing our only hospital on the Western Slope without, having some relief. So it's a huge concern for our, not just for Placerville, but for the entire El Dorado County on the Western Slope. So I think this is a great thing for us to do.
Great. Other questions, comments from the council? No? We'll open this for public comment.
Sue Rodman, and resident of Placerville and patient at Marshall Hospital on occasion. And it is a great little hospital, and we need to keep it, and we need to give them all the support that we can. I reviewed your draft letter, and I'm wondering why you're not sending this to the Democratic Committee, too. As it says, going to the Republican Committee, but it doesn't say anything about going to the Democrat Committee, and most of the state of California legislature, if I read things right, is run by the Democrats. So I think we need to tell them what we want too.
Thank you, Sue.
I can actually give you it is actually going to it. The Vince Marchand, the health consultant for the Senate Health Committee, is the majority party. So these are just to the caucus consultants on those two things. So the Democratic committee staff, the committee that staffs the committee, the staff that staffs the committee, the Democrats control that. So they're going to see it, and then the Republicans have their own consultants as well, and so they're going to get a copy of it as well. So both will get it.
Yeah, that's what I'm concerned about. Is we don't want to just send it to the minority party and then have it get ignored.
Great. Thank you, Sue. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council for discussion and a motion.
I would like to add one thing. Marshall is not a little hospital, okay? It's not a little hospital. I mean, it isn't as big as Sutter and some of those places, but it is not a little hospital. It does a lot of things up there. And it is the center of the #1 industry in this town, which is healthcare. So, it's not a small thing. And actually pushing this out, this almost gets to the edge of some of their capital plans, because if I remember correctly, they talked, the real bad part is the original hospital that was built in '59. It ain't going to fall over, but it doesn't meet any of these criteria. They're actually planning to go in, and if I remember correctly, they said they were going to take it down and rebuild it. And if they push this thing out, I think with this legislation, it might almost be to the edge of that capital program. So it would be huge for us because A, it keeps the hospital going, and two, it actually might fit in with their capital plans. So this is an interesting thing.
Do I hear a motion there?
I will move the letter.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay, we will move to 12.4. Acknowledge and file the AB 481 annual report and direct staff to post the report pursuant to Government Code 7072. Chief Wren.
It's the same as 2023. We haven't acquired any equipment that would fall within the category of Government Code 770, 771, or 772, and we have not used any of the equipment that we have currently listed as in our possession. I'll answer any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from council? Seeing no questions, I'll open this for public comment. Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council for a motion.
I'll move staff recommendation.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Passes unanimously. Okay, we will move to 12.5.
No.
I opened it. We did not receive any. They didn't want to talk to us. Okay. 12.5, consider approval of reorganization and new classification and salary schedule for the Community Services Department Community Service Specialist position. Mr. Morris.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We've been looking at some things in our Community Services Department, and there's several things that are come up, some of it related to our recent discussions regarding special events that has been quite detailed in what we've looked at and what we need to do going forward, and discussions with our interim director in ways that we can improve that and provide the staffing that they need in their department to make sure this new process that we will be proposing to you will work and we can keep it going. We looked at ways to change some of the staffing within the department. And this is fairly minor, but the proposal is to add a community services specialist position that would basically handle the administrative duties, but also be able to take on much more of the special event coordination duties, et cetera. And this is, hopefully works. We really feel that it can. There's also the other changes. We will be removing the administrative, or defunding the administrative assistant position, and we will also be replacing a Recreation Coordinator 2 position with a Recreation Coordinator 1 position. So that's kind of the full picture of that, upgrading one position, not upgrading, but creating a new position within that that will provide what we need to assist the director in fulfilling those responsibilities, primarily for special events, but also the other administrative duties that that former position provided. We believe that this can be very successful. It's basically cost neutral. If you look under the cost section of the staff report, it's actually a little bit less, but basically cost neutral going forward. And we'll continue to analyze that and see where it comes out in the future. But we do think that this can provide a benefit to the department and to some of those functions, such as special events. So if you have any questions, either myself or Mr. Yule can answer those. So.
Thank you. Questions from the council? Seeing none, we'll open this for public comment. None? Seeing none, we will close public comment and bring it back to the council for further discussion and a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the staff recommendations on the reorganization.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Passes unanimously. And we will move to 12.6. Consider adoption of a resolution of intent to initiate amendments to the text of the City of Placerville zoning ordinance 10-5-15, commercial zone to clarify subsection B, permitted uses, and subsection C, conditional uses with regards to a place of entertainment and new and used retail sales. Mr. Rivas.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. Zoning Ordinance Section 10-5-15 was adopted by the City Council on January 8th of 1991. So under that ordinance currently identifies what we define as a place of entertainment under subsections B8 and C8. So in other words, they're listed at both permitted uses and conditional use permit respectively. So you can't be both. In addition, subsection B8 and C8 does not clearly differentiate that new and used retail sales and retail service uses are permitted by right when fully enclosed in a building versus requiring a conditional use permit for when those same uses are not fully enclosed in a building. So I just want to point out, it's interesting that these two anomalies had existed since 1991. Typically, in instances where there is a conflict in the code, the more restrictive section prevails. However, these conflicts do create confusion for both the staff and public owners and members of the public that read the code. So that's why this is before you. So in your staff report, we are precisely daylighting the changes to be made. So it's not going to change anything. We're hoping we don't open any can of worms. I think this is precisely how staff has been interpreting these sections of the code since its adoption in 1991. And that's basically that places of entertainment do require a conditional use permit, and it has never been a use allowed by right. And then two, we want to clearly differentiate that new and used retail sales and retail service are allowed by right in the commercial zone. However, if it's outside, then it requires a conditional use permit, which allows then the city to place conditions of approval on its operation. So with that, I would just say that these revisions are surgical modifications to clearly show the intent of the code. Staff is not proposing any changes beyond how the ordinance has been interpreted, and staff recommends that the council adopt the resolution of intent to amend the code as indicated in the staff report.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the council? Seeing none, we'll open this for public comment. Seeing none, we'll close public comment and bring it back to the council for a motion.
I'll move the staff recommendation.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None. Passes unanimously. Okay, that brings us to 13, council reports from other agency meetings. El Dorado County Transit Authority, we received and filed the 24-25 preliminary budgets. El Dorado County Transportation Commission,
Same.
okay. LAFCO,
Didn't meet.
SACOG,
Next week.
Pioneer Energy,
We meet on the 25th.
Placerville Fire Safe Council, they reviewed their event and made recommendations for next year and did their elections. Opportunity Knox.
Yes, we received an update on the Permanent Navigation Center. There will be an item going before the Board of Supervisors the week of the 20th to move the location of the Permanent Navigation Center to the property adjacent to the jail rather than the old sheriff's building. The rationale behind that proposed move is essentially size of land space, and that the sheriff's facility, old sheriff's building, I'm not sure exactly what to call that property, isn't large enough to accommodate anything larger than a 60-bed navigation center. And the current navigation center, which is 60 beds, has been essentially running at capacity. There's also been demand for housing options for families, homeless families, which the navigation center cannot accommodate. And also a desire to have some sort of transitional housing for folks that don't necessarily need to be in the navigation center itself, but are still looking for case worker support. And so that property adjacent to the jail is about 2 acres, and so can accommodate a much larger build project. That obviously is going before the Board of Supervisors. It has not been approved yet, so you can make comments as you please associated with that item to the County Board of Supervisors. It's the week of the 20th. Let's see, what else on this? Oh, it will also mean, if that change is approved, that it will change the Permanent Navigation Center completion date and opening to 2026. So the temporary navigation center will continue operating until that point in time, if that proposal goes through. So yes, that's the big update from the COC.
Can I ask you a couple questions?
Yeah, sure.
When you say adjacent to the jail, what exactly property? Did they tell you where?
There's like a 2-acre property where when you drive in, there's like the DA parking. So it's like part of that, and it goes down, like overlooks like Missouri Flat. So it's
on the backside of the jail?
Yeah, it's on the backside.
Okay. And so are they proposing a bigger facility? If they're saying the 60 isn't working now, did they say how many bed facility they're proposing?
So they're proposing a navigation center that is 60 beds, but then additional housing. So probably like pallet structures or something along those lines for families, as well as, you know, folks that maybe originally went into the navigation center and are ready to transition out of that congregate living environment, or for some reason are not do well in a congregate living environment. So that's they're going to have both, but that's the current plan that's going in front of the Board of Supervisors that we were informed about.
Okay, so that's 2 acres of land versus
Yep.
the old sheriff's site.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I have a question. So is that the location that was originally?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just
Yeah. You know, I know this is just an update. This is just an update. Lo and behold, it ends up where the guy wanted to put it in the first place, which shouldn't surprise anybody. I'm going to give an alternative view of this, like on Earth One, where we all live. They're tired of seeing that S show down there, and I bet you they're getting complaints, and they want to move it out of their side yard and over towards there, which of course puts them right next to Ron Thompson, Diamond Pacific, and all those people that live up on Nugget and all those houses over there. And I just don't know how that's going to go down, because at least one sheriff said, we can't put it on Pert's Corner because that'll mess up our commercial district. And yet he wants to land that thing right next to our commercial district.
Yes.
And I'm sure it means all those other things too.
I am providing an update on what I heard.
No. I just wanted to understand some points of the update.
And I am also informing you that it is not approved yet, so
Okay.
any and all of us have the ability to make comments if we would like to do so, because that will be an item in the Board of Supervisors meeting the week of the 20th, plus any members of the public who are listening who would, you know, if they own businesses or live in that area or et cetera and would like to comment, I'm informing you of this. Yes.
Thank you, Councilmember Godfrey. Appreciate that update.
I just wanted to give an update. I did talk to Supervisor Thomas about that also. My understanding is that they will not actually be approving the site, but will recommend that they continue further explore that site and whether or not it will work permanently. That it won't be a formal approval of the site, but I may be wrong. That's what I was told by Supervisor Thomas. So.
Would have been helpful to know that that was an ongoing discussion. Okay, we will open item 13 to the public. Questions, comments? Seeing none, we will bring it back to the council. Number 14, requests for future agenda items.
I do have a request, actually. I want to, we have a lot of different things going on. We've added workload on our staff. What I'd like to have come back is I'd like to see how our committee, and this also goes to what we just heard on the art plan as well, but, you know, what's our what does the staff look like in terms of the amount of work product we have on them from all of our committees? Because I really want to get a sense, like, so from planning, Parks and Rec, you know, anything else, peak, because I really think we need to balance out what they're doing and making sure that they're not getting caught up in work that isn't priorities for the city. And so I just want to get an update, and this is kind of like a 360 overview to some degree, just so we have a full sense of things, because things kind of come and go. You know, we have meetings, we give instructions, and you don't really see it in its totality. So what I wanted to do is just see kind of where we're at on things, and really have staff talk amongst themselves and get back to us, like, here's what we're facing, and here's what's coming down the pike. So I don't know if that's too, like, not enough vision for it, but that's kind of what I wanted to see come back. And it doesn't even have to be, it would be an agenda item. It doesn't have to be something that we maybe vote on that day, but I really want to see that, because I feel like we've added a lot of new things, and there's things consistently coming down, and I just want a clearer picture of it. That makes sense.
So for I'm sorry.
That was clear as mud.
Clear as mud, all right.
For clarification, is it basically just the amount of time that is spent in supporting those committees and commissions?
Yes.
By each?
Yeah, and like what's on the, like what's,
I'm just wondering, would our budgeting meetings be a more appropriate time for that particular discussion? I don't know, I'm asking.
We can do it either way. It will require some time of our departments to identify that and put it together. No, I'm not saying that negative. But no, I understand what you're saying, and I think that we can do that. And
Okay, but I do have an agenda item I want to propose.
okay.
And this is to direct staff to review the Planning Commission ordinance and recommend any changes. If you've been watching the Planning Commission, it looks like they're struggling with their historical advisory duties, and we haven't been super clear as a council. And what I'm worried about seeing is staff spending a lot of time doing what they want, bringing it back to council, and then we saying, oh, no, that's not what we wanted. And for us to be, by looking at that ordinance, to be clear on the definitions of what their duties are and what's above and beyond those duties, if that makes sense.
that's good.
So that's what I'd like to propose.
Okay.
Is everybody okay with that?
That works?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay. I know they're asking a question, but I can't eavesdrop well enough. I can't quite hear it. Okay. Okay, I will open 14 to public comment. Seeing none, we'll bring it back. Number 15, city manager and staff reports. 15.1, receive and file March 2024 police report. Chief Wren.
We got pies back.
We have pies back. We're excited.
Pie charts.
Nothing as far as stats. The only thing to really report on is that we've partnered with County Probation Department. We now have probation officers from time to time riding out full shifts with our officers to provide assistance. They deal with a population within the community that we interact with on, sparse occasions, but that's their clientele. So we're creating that, further developing that relationship with county probation and sharing of ideas and sharing of strategies to better manage the probationary population. So,
Great, thank you.
answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions from the council?
I do, and I've asked this before for you, Chief, and that's the high-risk transient sex offenders. Are these guys wearing ankle bracelets or ankle, but the monitors?
Some of them are monitored.
Some of them are monitored.
Those that still have a probation term associated with their registration status. Some have fallen off probation, but they're still, because of the committal offense, met that requirement. That's going to be a tag for them for the rest of their time they register.
Do you know, what does probation do with, how are they monitoring them? I know if they're on the monitor, they can kind of they have a sense of what they're doing, but if they're not, we have no idea, right? They're just in the wind.
Yeah, probation's they've got a pretty hefty caseload. and they do what they can. That's part of the strategy with teaming up with them, is to find a better pathway to ensure that we're monitoring those folks who are currently on probation living within our jurisdiction, so we can help them in their probation and their duties to monitor, and they can provide us with maybe some laws and strategies that we don't necessarily are aware of, because we don't deal with that probation population like they do.
I kind of have a
Thank you.
piggyback question on that, and as we're looking at those numbers, we see that 2 of those people are at the Navigation Center address, but the county is talking about opening a Navigation Center with families. How is that going to work?
That would be with the county to deal with.
Yeah, they would have to approach that and study how they can do that safely. And that's maybe part of the reason they want to look at this new site, so that they can have more room to be able to allow for things like that. But so
Okay, yeah, no, I was just curious.
And that number varies, because some people don't always go with the program, so they'll get kicked out, or there'll be more room and somebody else will move in that may be on the registration status. So that number fluctuates.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Do we have any questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, we'll bring that back and move to 15.2, Development Services Department's Development Permitting Statistics for the month of March 2024. Mr. Rivas.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council. I have nothing really to add unless any council members have any questions, but I would like to say that we have a number of large projects that are waiting in the wings, such as, when I mean by large, I mean like an apartment complex, subdivision, some bigger projects than your average building permit type activities. So
you guys have stuff to do?
we have a lot to do.
Very good. Questions
stuff.
from the council? None? Questions from the public? Seeing none, okay, we will bring this back. Move to item 16, upcoming items. You can read those at your leisure, and we will move to item 17, adjournment at 6:40. Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for coming.